For someone who has one face, I do have a lot of concealers. So just for fun, I'm gonna swatch all the concealers I own. This is a two-part series, so let's start from the concealer shades that I only use for concealing my dark spots, dark circles and hyperpigmentation. So these concealer shades are a very close match to my skin tone. I'm gonna talk you through everything I own in this category, which includes my absolute favorites to my worst picks. Let's start with the first one. This is the Milani Conceal Plus Perfect Longwear Concealer in the shade Warm Tan. 10 out of 10. This is my most trusted concealer ever. The best concealer I have ever used because I have dry skin, and this is a full coverage concealer. It does not dry out my skin, and the best thing about this concealer is that it has a warm olive undertone. So if you also have a warm olive undertone, you already know how hard it is to find concealers with olive undertones. It has a very thick consistency, yet the finish is very natural. The only con about this concealer is that it oxidizes a lot, so just keep that in mind. I use this concealer on a regular basis and also for glam makeup looks. That's how much I trust this concealer. Next is the Maybelline New York Fit Me Concealer in 40 Caramel. Okay, this is a mattifying concealer. It has a medium yet buildable consistency and it dries down to full matte. If you're a dry skin person, you can just use this concealer and you don't even have to, set it with powder. In my opinion, this is a very beginner friendly concealer and almost everyone has, tried this concealer out. Easy to blend, and I would love to try the next shade in this range, which I believe is called 50 Cafe. Now 40 Caramel has a very warm yellow undertone compared to the Milani concealer, which has a warm olive undertone. You can see how yellow and golden this looks. Now we have the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Concealer in Medium Deep Tan. I rarely ever use this concealer because this shade, Medium Deep Tan, is like a treasure to me. They took this shade off of Nykaa, and currently Wet n Wild only offer a few shades, which is like unfortunate. This shade is my skin in a bottle. It has that perfect warm tone, which is like a true match to my skin tone. I don't use this concealer on a regular basis. I save it like a treasure, okay? This is the only concealer that looks phenomenal on camera. It has a thick formula and blends like a charm. The finish is very natural, and on camera though, it looks like I have a filter on. Something about the Wet n Wild Photo Focus range, which includes the concealer and their foundation, they all look phenomenal on camera. I love their Photo Focus foundation as well. Now I have the same concealer in the shade Tawny, which seems like a highlighting shade to my skin tone. Yes, it is a bit lighter, but I can still make it work. Compared to Medium Deep Tan, this has a very neutral undertone. I used to use this particular shade when I was in college. Compared to Medium Deep Tan, this has a very neutral undertone. You can also see how the concealers have oxidized. The Milani looks almost green on my skin. Next is the Lakme 9 to 5 Primer Plus Matte Liquid Concealer in 30 Cinnamon. I love this concealer. I wish Lakme could make a hydrating version of this concealer. It is a medium coverage concealer that dries down to a matte finish. So if I wear this concealer, I will use minimal amount of powder to set it. So yeah, a really nice concealer for oily skin type. The shade looks like a good match for me. The undertone is also warm neutral. Just like the Milani concealer, this also oxidizes a lot. One of the absolute worst concealers I own, and it is the Faces Canada High Cover Concealer in Toffee Love 04. This concealer is in no way a high coverage concealer. It has a very light, almost like skin tint kind of a finish. The undertone is straight up a neon yellow color. I'm in such disbelief because there's no way this color could work on any skin tone. The shade range is very bad, and the only undertones they offer are neon yellow and neon pink. It also creases very badly. This concealer creased on places where I didn't even know a concealer can crease. That's how bad the creasing was. The only thing I liked about this concealer was the finish, which looks good on camera, but otherwise it is an absolute trash. Next is the Blue Heaven Flawless Liquid Concealer in 501 Toffee. Yeah, let's talk about this. On Nykaa, this shade looked yellow and warm, but in reality it has a pink undertone. Again, this in no way is a full coverage concealer, which they claim it is. The pink in this concealer really pops on my skin. The concealer also looks very patchy and weird, and on top of that, it has that headache-inducing fragrance. I don't even mind fragrances. Imagine me complaining. Overall, I hate this concealer and I don't see myself using it that often. We have another one from Blue Heaven again. It's their Erase and Enhance Full Coverage Concealer Pen in Caramel. First of all, hate the applicator. It takes forever for the product to come out of this tube. So annoying, and you have to click it over and over till you get some of the product out. And contrary to the shade name, this has a very neutral undertone. You know, just a mediocre product, and also it provides very little coverage. Maybe good for teenagers and beginners, but it's not my favorite. Now that some of the previous concealers that I applied have oxidized, you can see here how the Faces concealer pops on my skin, almost like a yellow liquid eyeshadow. Rimmel Lasting Matte Concealer in 040 Tan. This is hands down the best matte concealer I've ever used. Every time I read the label, I get so confused because yes, it is matte, but it's also non-drying. It's not a drying matte, more like a soft, airy, velvety matte. But the frustrating thing is, Rimmel took it off from Nykaa, so I don't know when this will be restocked. Coming to the shade, it has the perfect neutral undertone that looks very natural on my skin tone, just like the Wet n Wild concealer in Medium Deep Tan. This too is like my treasure. I rarely ever use this concealer nowadays. Next is the Mars Blossom Liquid Concealer in 07 Bronze Tan. When I got this concealer, I literally had no expectations whatsoever. I was blown away, and I didn't expect such a good product from Mars. Just like the Milani concealer, this too is a full coverage concealer. It has a neutral, warm undertone. The finish is freaking fabulous, dude. Even though it is a full coverage concealer, doesn't cake up at all. I usually pair this up with their orange color corrector and use it under my eyes. The part where they really messed up is their shade range. I wish they could expand their shade range. Unfortunately, this is their last shade, which is kind of embarrassing, okay? You can see that compared to the Rimmel concealer, this is on a warmer side. Still looks pretty neutral on my skin. This is the best budget concealer that I would actually recommend. The last concealer I have in this category is the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer in Medium Beige. I don't know if it's because of the shade range, I just never reach out to this concealer. Again, it's a good concealer. Now compared to their original Camo concealer, the hydrating version is so much more better for my dry skin. It has a very heavy yellow undertone compared to the other two concealers I have it here. It is also full coverage, easy to blend, and the finish is pretty natural, I would say. I would love if e.l.f. launched the rest of the shades from their Hydrating Camo Concealer range. And that is it for part 1. I will come back with more swatches and reviews. I will see you when I see you next. Bye!